Hello and greetings to everyone. This is Narval's brand new vacuum cleaner. You don't have to touch it for 120 days. It has a self-emptying dust bag docking station and its price is under 90,000 forints. In this video, I'll show you what it can do and also what it can't. So stay with me. A few weeks ago, someone in my Facebook group was already looking for the older Narva machine, the one that didn't have a dock yet, but was smart enough and quite cheap, and I couldn't find this machine. And then I told this person, look, there must be something going on in the background, something is in the works, because I don't know why else that vacuum would have disappeared. I was right, because Narva's new affordable machine has arrived, and considering how cheap it is, it has an incredible suction power, and it comes with a dock that has a dust bag, so you don't have to keep emptying the dust container. It backs up to the dock, and the dock sucks the dirt into the dust bag. The manufacturer says that you don't have to touch it for 120 days. Obviously, this is only true if you don't have a dog, don't have kids, and your apartment is spotless. 120 days seems a bit much to me, but even if we only look at half of that, 60 days is still 2 months. So if we can manage to go 2 months with daily cleaning without having to touch the vacuum, and it does everything automatically, that's really great. So basically, I'm really glad that this vacuum arrived and I got to try it out because I felt that Narval has made some progress since they've now included the docking station even in the budget category. In this video, as usual, we'll go through the standard routine: specifications, exterior, app, and experiences. So now I'll start with the specifications. This vacuum cleaner has a suction power of 8,000 pascals, and I think that's its most important feature, which I need to highlight because 8,000 pascals is incredibly strong for a robot vacuum. This is already a hallmark of the high-end category, not something you'd find in a mid-range or entry-level vacuum. 8,000 pascals, let me say it again, is really, really awesome. The manufacturer says that you don't need to touch this machine for 120 days thanks to the dispenser, and they also claim that because of the battery, it can operate for a relatively long time on a single charge, allowing you to clean an apartment of up to 140 square meters in one go. Obviously, it has a water tank and comes with a mop, which means it is capable of mopping. The manufacturer says that the mop is pressed onto the floor with 8 Nm of force, so it can mop very effectively. I'll talk more about this later. On the bottom of the machine, we see the usual things: the infrared sensor all around, 2 large wheels that can climb over 2 centimeter thresholds, a side brush and a central roller brush, and that's pretty much it. As for the exterior, I can say that this is a completely average robot vacuum cleaner in terms of size, height, and everything else. It has the same wheels as all the others. It has a collision sensor at the front, just like all the others. There's a power button and a home button that you can use to send it back to its dock. All of these are totally straightforward and simple, and they're exactly the same as any other random robot vacuum cleaner. If we turn the machine over, we can see the water tank, which is on the bottom. Of course, this is also the dustbin itself. Obviously, you don't have to open the machine's lid, which I really like. It's much better to have the dustbin down here because it's much easier to remove this way. Yes, you're right, I took out the dustbin. The dustbin can be opened and it has a HEPA filter on top, which can also be removed separately at this part, and you can fill it with water through this little hole here. It's important to note that there's a pump inside here. It has a motorized pump built in. I'd like to point out here that these pumps don't like limescale, so if you buy this kind of vacuum cleaner and want to use it for mopping, you should use ion exchanged or distilled water whenever possible, so it stays in good condition for a long time and the pump inside, or more precisely this little pump, doesn't get damaged. My first observation about the roller brush is something I definitely want to share with you, and which was a disappointment for me. Because Narva had a special roller brush, the so-called floating roller brush. The essence of the floating roller brush was that it was only suspended on one side, while on the other side it really just floated in the air. Narva said, and this has also been my experience, that fabric, lint and hair don't tend to get wrapped around that brush. Instead, they get sucked into the vacuum cleaner, which means the brush is essentially maintenance-free. The manufacturer has left out this solution from this vacuum cleaner and put in a completely different type of brush. Its color is similar to the Narva brush, so it's purple. But otherwise it doesn't resemble the old floating brush at all, and I find that a bit of a shame because that was a really good solution. The other thing I need to draw your attention to is that the side brush on the vacuum cleaner has also changed. The situation is that the older Narwal vacuum cleaners had a two-pronged brush, and in the newer versions, one of the prongs was even bent. This was a really good solution because this brush couldn't wind hair or fabric fibers around itself. If it tried to, one of the brush's prongs would bend and the dirt would simply fall off. That's not the case here. Here we got a completely normal standard side brush, just like in every other vacuum cleaner. This is where things started to seem a bit suspicious to me. Are we really talking about a Narva vacuum cleaner? Even just looking at the exterior, all those new features and little details I love about Narva vacuums are missing from this one. There's no central roller brush, no side brush, so this was a bit strange. But now let's move on to the app, and there will be a few odd things there as well. Okay, so we've covered the exterior, we've covered the specifications. Now let's move on to the app because that's also very important. And right away, I have a complaint about the app, and this also somewhat reinforces my suspicion that this might not actually be Narval's own machine. Or well, obviously it's a Narval machine, but it's not certain that they manufacture it themselves, but I'll show you why I think that. The vacuum cleaner installs into the Narval app. There's no difference here. You can open it and the map loads. The user interface basically looks the same as with all the other Narval vacuum cleaners. At the top we have our map, and at the bottom there's a menu where you can select the cleaning mode for the vacuum. As usual, there's the vacuum and mop mode, which means it mops and vacuums at the same time. There's the vacuum and then mop mode, which means it first goes around the apartment and vacuums, then goes around again and mops. There's also just vacuum, and I think these are pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing complicated about them. And at first glance, this screen looks exactly the same as it did with the previous vacuum cleaners. However, there is a very important difference I need to point out, namely that there is no Freo mode. The name of this machine is Narval Freo S. The Freo mode on these machines is the fully automatic mode, where you don't have to set anything, the machine adjusts everything by itself. Depending on what kind of surface it's on, hard floor, carpet, etc. Depending on how dirty the floor is, you don't have to set anything. This is a robot vacuum cleaner. I really love the Freo mode because it's an automatic robot vacuum cleaner. You don't have to adjust anything. The robot does everything by itself, but this vacuum cleaner doesn't have Freo mode. So I have to ask, why is the vacuum cleaner called Narval Freo S if it doesn't have Freo mode? So I feel like that's something you could definitely criticize, but the problems don't end there. Because if you look at the map, well, it looks pretty strange. In this apartment, there's a kitchen, a living room, a hallway, and 2 bedrooms. You can see on the map that for some reason, the vacuum doesn't draw any walls. So it treats the 2 bedrooms as a single space. The corridor, or hallway, is not separated from this. The size of the kitchen is also somewhat incorrect, and for some reason, there are 2 living rooms. If I select this living room, not this one, but the other one, I'm trying, but it's not working. So I select this living room, then you can see that for some reason, it has attached part of the corridor to the living room through the wall, which, well, in my opinion, doesn't really work properly like this. And the other problem is that if I have 2 living rooms here, and I try to merge these 2 living rooms, so to combine them into one room, it doesn't allow me to do that for some reason. Maybe it's because part of the hallway overlaps with the other living room. I can't say for sure why, but it just doesn't allow it. So in my opinion, these are quite serious problems, and we haven't even mentioned yet that previous Narwal vacuum cleaners had relatively advanced map editing features. For example, you could add furniture to the map. I could place the sofa and the coffee table in the living room, the dining table in the dining room, and even the toilet bowl in the bathroom in case the vacuum didn't recognize it automatically. Apart from that, using the app is no more complicated than what we're already used to. Everything is easy to manage and adjust. You can set the suction power in 4 levels, choose how many times the vacuum should go over a given area, and adjust in 3 levels how much water the mop receives. So basically, you can set everything that you would generally expect to be adjustable on these types of machines, specifically on Narval devices. Let's not talk about the fact that, of course, a lot of features are missing since this machine doesn't have a cold water or hot water tank. There's no detergent dispenser, and a bunch of other things like that. And obviously, these features haven't been included in the software either. But I don't really miss these. It's understandable. However, I'm not satisfied with all the other things. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the application. And now let's move on to what it was like to use this machine. I think by now you also understand why I have doubts about whether this is truly a Narval machine. Not just in name, but whether they actually manufacture it. And it's not just some random vacuum cleaner manufacturer from whom they've bought these vacuums. But how was the quality of the cleaning? I wanted to do two types of tests, a vacuuming test and an obstacle avoidance test. I didn't want to do a mopping test with the mop because even though people do these online, I think it's absolute nonsense since these mops aren't meant for actually mopping the floor, but rather for picking up the dust left behind after vacuuming. Because it doesn't get washed out, so if it gets really dirty, you'd just be dragging the dirt all over the apartment. It's meant for removing dust, not for wiping up ketchup stains, Nutella smeared on the floor, or things like that. This mop is not suitable for that. So it's completely pointless to do mopping tests with it because it's not going to be good for mopping. And now let's move on and get back to what kind of tests I did with it. I wanted to do a vacuuming test and I wanted to do an obstacle avoidance test. And for the vacuuming and another test, I came up with the idea to set up my 360-degree camera in the middle of the kitchen and the vacuum would go around it, and it would be really great because I could record how it vacuums, and I could also see during the obstacle avoidance test how it avoids the legs of the tripod that the camera is standing on. Now, the situation is that it doesn't avoid them at all. So what actually happened is that I started the vacuum cleaner and it went into the kitchen and vacuumed beautifully. I have to add this, and it definitely needs to be highlighted, that its vacuuming performance with 8,000 pascals is simply flawless because it vacuumed up the rice, the cat food, the flour, the semolina. It picked up everything, though not everywhere. And here again, it's the obstacle avoidance and navigation that I wasn't really satisfied with. Because in terms of navigation, it simply didn't notice the tripod and started pushing it around the kitchen along with the camera. After this, I didn't really feel like doing a separate obstacle avoidance test for it, since it didn't even notice the tripod. So from this perspective, I thought I'd rather skip testing the obstacle avoidance. But I wasn't completely satisfied with the vacuuming either, because this side brush here, while operating, swept the dirt out from under the front of the vacuum to an area where the vacuum had already passed and didn't go back to, and as a result, a strip of semolina was left on the floor. So the problem isn't with the vacuuming performance, but rather that this side brush didn't work 100% perfectly. It's true, I have to add that I put an extremely large amount of dirt on the floor, so if it had just been dust or just a few crumbs or something like that, obviously those wouldn't have been left behind. But that's how a test works, ladies and gentlemen. In a test, you have to challenge the vacuum cleaner with extreme conditions, not just a few specks of dust. So, to be honest, my opinion about this vacuum cleaner is quite mixed, and that's putting it mildly. Because I love Narva vacuum cleaners. I have a Narva vacuum cleaner at home myself. I really like it. They're very good machines. So I was really excited about this vacuum cleaner because now we're finally seeing a docking station with a dust bag, even in the lower price category, and that's really great. But the machine arrived, and I have to say, in my opinion, this machine is not a Narva. I don't know who manufactures this vacuum cleaner, but all those tiny little details, those subtle nuances that make me love Narva. The thoughtfully designed, well-crafted, well-planned components that make me love Narva are missing from this vacuum cleaner. You might ask, does that mean this is a bad vacuum cleaner? And I have to say no. It's not a bad vacuum cleaner at all since it's sold for under 90,000 forints. It really has a lot of features. It really has strong suction, and it's really great that the dust bag is in the docking station. The motor in the docking station is very powerful, so it does a great job of sucking out and extracting the dirt from the dust container. So I can say that if you want a cheap, well-functioning robot vacuum cleaner with good features for yourself, you can go ahead and buy it with confidence. In my opinion, you really won't be disappointed with it, since it delivers exactly what you can expect for this price. As I mentioned, its price is now 90,000 forints with a coupon, which I think is a good deal, and it ships from a European warehouse. You can find the link to where you can buy it under the video on YouTube, and the coupon code will also be there, which lets you get it for under 90,000 forints. If you like the video, choose one of the other two appearing next to me and check those out as well. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and come back, because I'll be back soon with more reviews. Until then, take care and goodbye.